All right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the St. Louis podcast. I'm your glorious host today, Eric Brown, president of Vi Media and partner at Mogul Holdings. As you can see, it's just myself today. So this will be interesting. I wanted to talk about business today and a few things that have really helped me, be successful at Vi, starting the podcast, and really kind of the journey that I've been on since graduating college. Because right when I got out of college, I knew in college I wanted to get into business a little bit too late. I went in, talked to the school counselor, admin person, whatever you want to call them. I don't think they're the counselor. And I was like, hey, I want to switch over to business. I was a health science major. They were like, I was halfway through junior year. They were like, you're going to have to go, an extra year on top of that if you want to switch to business. So, of course, at that point, my business brain was like, that doesn't seem like that makes a lot of business sense. So I continued and got my health science degree immediately out of college. Like many people, I didn't know what the hell I was going to do. And, I had a buddy, Garrett Atkins. His godfather had a credit repair company. And I immediately started cold calling people that we were associated with loan officers to hopefully get people approved for a home loan and get them back over to the LO. And in that job, I learned a ton about really just sales and customer service, and cold calling, and really just putting your foot down, hammering the damn phone, and getting it done. Because especially when you're new to sales, and if you have a new business, right, no one's going to know about that business, especially if you don't have, a ton of money to dump into that business with marketing and things like that. When I worked at credit repair and then eventually at Vi Media, my network was not large at all. And really what, kind of my starting point at Vi, which is interesting, and the reason I still, to this day, dress the way I do, which I almost always have a suit on, as I'm sure you guys have noticed, is because, and I'll tell you the story, Ben, my first boss, was like, hey, you should go get a suit. So I went and got a suit. And of course, like everyone, you go to Men's Warehouse, you wear that suit for a little bit in your, younger 20s. And eventually, hopefully you figure out, there's bigger and better things in life than, going to Men's Warehouse. And really what I learned is that it was almost an overcoming. It was almost putting on a suit of armor, because selling business owners twice your age is difficult for them to trust you, right? And it makes it a little bit easier when it looks like you know what the hell you're talking about. And that's why I literally did research. I remember I went into, I moved over to Vi, and that first week, I wanted a new suit, went into Men's Warehouse, and, got the suit, put it on, and I was like, this looks like absolute shit. And the people at, Men's Warehouse, no offense to them, they're just doing their job. But it's not what I wanted. And that's when I went in one of my deep rabbit holes of learning about suit making, and eventually figured out, canvassing, fabrics, just being a nerd when it comes to figuring out exactly what goes into making a suit and really looking good. And at that point, I didn't have a lot of money. I had no money. I mean, when we started Vi, I literally moved back into my parents' basement, as I'm sure a lot of you are well aware. After doing, I was doing fairly well at credit repair. Right out of college, I was making, obviously pre-COVID money. This is a lot better than it is now, but living downtown, making $70,000 a year selling credit repair wasn't bad right out of college, living in a loft downtown, and literally making the move to essentially give up everything to go over to Vi was easily the hardest decision I've ever made in my life. And it took me a long time of talking about it with Garrett, as many of you guys know. He's been on the podcast, and of course, started Vi Media initially. Many discussions late at night about quitting what I was doing and moving over to Vi. And it took many months to have that discussion and finally get it through my head of, hey, this is something I want to do. So going there, I'm like, this is terrible. Return the suit, do some research, find suit supply. And there goes my start of my adventure, on suits. And I think it not only helps from a standpoint of, and I get a lot of flack from people. They're like, why do you wear a suit? And Christian Menny and I actually had a good discussion a couple months ago about this. They're like, what, everyone else in what you do wears, the polo, right? The athletic polo. And I'm like, I don't want to be like everyone else. I never have wanted to be like everyone else. And I like to differentiate myself. And I think that that's an easy way to do so. I was at an expo just a couple days ago, and, it was pretty much all home service companies, managers of properties, homeowners associations, property managers, things like that. And there was, I think, besides probably the attorneys, no one else was really in a suit jacket, and maybe the insurance guys as well. But from a marketing standpoint, I was talking to people even before the event, because, I'm like, what do you think I should wear? And someone was like, just wear a polo like everyone else. And immediately at that point, I was like, nope, not doing that. I'm going to wear some of my boots to fit in. I'm not going to wear a full suit, but, I'll put some chinos on, and I'll put a suit jacket on, with a nice pocket square, like I am today. And that, it felt great. Damn, did I look good as well. So that's how I kind of got into, the whole clothing aspect. And I think from a, Garrett also dressed well too. And I think that really helped us, because a lot of other marketing agencies, especially the people that were our age, trying to sell business owners, just look like, they rolled out of bed, just a t-shirt and a pair of jeans. And, that's great if you're worth hundreds of millions of dollars or tens of millions of dollars and you don't care what other people think of you at that point. You've, in quotation marks, made it, right? But if you're starting out, it's very hard, at least for me or anyone else from what I've talked to take you seriously when you don't look professional. And that was one thing that has definitely helped us. But going back to, starting a business, one big thing that we did at Vi, right, starting off, and I did, was I'd go to Google, I'd type in whatever, heating company, St. Louis, call them all. Call absolutely every single person, manually put them in a CRM. At that point, we were using Zoho CRM, manually putting those businesses into Zoho CRM. Pretty much had nothing automated. I had some email templates I'd copy and paste. I'd have some voicemail drops, really didn't have any scripts for that, didn't have an automated voicemail drop feature. I was just calling off my cell phone, and eventually we got a landline for Vi, and I was calling off of that. But at the end of the day, picking up the phone and reaching out to business owners, especially, 8 years ago when I moved over to Vi, or 7 years ago when I moved over to Vi, was very efficient. But really where I found, after really 6 to 12 months of only cold calling, I really wasn't doing a lot of going out and networking. I posted in a group. I was like, hey, I'm looking to join a networking event, went out to that networking event. And that networking event helped us, profoundly. Maybe not in the return on clients that we got, but just from a brand awareness standpoint. I was essentially brand new to networking. Of course, on the credit repair side, I did some networking with like real estate agents and loan officers, but not in terms of really trying to build relationships, trying to give, right? And that's a big thing. I think really Garrett, who credit where credit's due, was like, listen, we're probably not going to get a lot out of these networking groups at first. We just need to give, and give. And our whole intention of going into these networking groups was not to get business. Of course, that's secondary. That is what we want. That is the end goal. But it's very obvious when you go to a networking event and you are that person. Our end goal, of course, was to make money. But our foot in the door, and really what we cared about, was just giving back. How were we able to be a connector? How were we able to, if someone was asking to meet a specific person, how do I get them to meet that person? If, me listening to other people talk about, the issues that they're having in the business, and then me being able to connect with them with someone that I know is very good at what they do, right? Or if it's just volunteering your time. Garrett and I started a networking group, in Richmond Heights. I think it was like right during or a little bit right after COVID. So it was weird times, But, we weren't paid for that, right? We didn't make any money off of that. We gave our time in order to run that networking group. And in return, really what we got was great relationships that we still have to this day. And I can't say enough things about especially if you're selling locally, products, services, get into local networking groups. There are good ones, there are bad ones. B&I has worked also really well for me. I would look at joining a B&I chapter, if that makes sense or where you're at. A lot of people don't like B&I. I get it. It might not be for you. You've watched me on this podcast and you're probably like, hell, Eric, it doesn't seem like it's for you. But find one really at the end of the day that if it makes sense, you have to find good ones because just like anything, there are bad ones as well. You want to find a group, again, that is going to give. Find a group that is passing businesses and passing referrals. Find a group that has successful people in them, more successful than you, right? At the end of the day, you don't want to be the most successful person in the room. You don't want to be the most knowledgeable person in the room. If you are, you're probably in the wrong room or in a room by yourself. Joke. So, networking is super important, but also figure out a way to network where you're using your time wisely. It's very easy to network your way out of business by going to a bunch of networking groups, not getting anything done, not getting business in return. And, then you're like, what the hell have I just done for the last year of not generating any business? So networking is super important when you're starting, out of business. Because again, with networking, it's free, right? And maybe not free, but it's a lot more expensive to go out and start running ads and start, spending money on, building a website and things like that versus going to local events. There's a ton of free ones, right? And there's, there's other ones as well, chambers of commerce, right? Chambers of commerce are hit and miss, just like anything else. There's industry-specific associations like the expo I was talking about that I went to earlier this week. And even for that organization, my goal, again, is obviously to, establish relationships with home service companies. That's really what we specialize in. But secondary goal, was to give, my assistance and my help from a marketing standpoint, because they didn't really have anyone that was able to come in and be like, hey, from a marketing standpoint, and we need a strategy for this group. And how can we go ahead and do that? And I was like, listen, easily can donate my time to help out with this because, of course, if it helps out the group, obviously at the end of the day, I'm part of the group as well. It's going to help out, of course, me as well. And I like doing it, right? I like marketing. That's why I have ViMedia. I've been doing it for 7 years now. It doesn't seem like a long time, but there are plenty of people I talk to that only are in businesses for 5 years and then they're out. If I wanted to be out, I'll say I would be out, but I like helping business owners and doing what I do. Also, the nice thing about networking is you can leverage their social media with yours. So the next thing I want to talk about is using social media. I do a decent job of posting. I don't do an amazing job. I should post every single day and walk the plank and do what I say other business owners should do. But frankly, I hate social media. So it's hard for me to get on there every day and post. But, that's why, I create this content, is really to try and give back to the people of St. Louis, to business owners, to anyone that wants to watch this or just purely for entertainment, right? We have, we talked about Mr. Beast a couple weeks ago and TikTok. TikTok hates me, man. Let me tell you. They're always like, another podcaster with a hot take. And I'm just like, I got no comeback. I'm like, yeah, you're true. That is true. But using social media is super important. You can leverage their, whoever you're with, you can leverage their network with yours through social media. Just posting on social media, become an expert, talk about what you do, talk about how you help business owners or just, homeowners or whoever you service, right? Create content. It doesn't have to be amazing. Create it yourself. Take a video and just be like, hey, this AC unit's not working. Here's why. Let's get it working again. Things like that to establish yourself as an expert. That's something really I will say that, Vi really didn't start doing well until like 2 years ago. We weren't really creating a lot of good content that was establishing us as experts. The only way we were establishing us as experts was through, just doing good work for our clients and those clients talking about the success that they've had and being our biggest cheerleaders. But of course, slowly, we realized in order to really take it to the next step, in order to grow, not only Vi, but really to grow our expertise as well in our giving back again to the community, and just to people, anyone that wants to learn about this stuff is to, obviously do what we're doing now, create content on Vi Media, and then of course creating this, this podcast, obviously for the people of St. Louis, but for, anyone that's interested in learning not only about St. Louis business owners or what we got going on in St. Louis, but from a standpoint of business, I think we do talk about a lot of good business stuff on this podcast as well. And we do have fun doing so, as you'll see by some of the clips we do post. It's not only about business and it's not only about, current topics, right? So using social media. The other thing I think Vi, has always tried to do well is to set proper expectations, right? It's very easy as a salesperson, and, I'm the head of sales at Vi. Pretty much have been kind of since the beginning. Obviously, Garrett, led sales for a while, but, we wanted him to kind of be obviously the CEO, which he was for a majority of the time, to really lead the company. And I was out there, establishing relationships, right? So, one way to get a bad name, to burn bridges, is, especially in the marketing field or really any other field, is by not setting proper expectations and also not being accountable. We had a marketing campaign for the first time in a long time through Vi that didn't go the way we wanted it to go. And we stated it up front immediately that the campaign was not going the way we wanted it to go. We took accountability. We were like, hey, we're going to do as much as humanly possible. We brought in other account experts outside of our company just to consult us to see if we get this campaign going well. And every single lever that we pulled, we did. We only charge startup after that. We did it for free. We tried to get the campaign to the point where we wanted it to. Sometimes Google, even in estimating through Keyword Planner, stuff doesn't go our way. It doesn't go our way. It goes our way, I would say 98% of the time, because this is the first time in a handful of years that we've had this issue, where we truly just couldn't get the campaign to launch and be successful for the business owner. And continuing to run it and charge them for it made no sense. Continuing to spend money in the campaign made no sense as well. And the reason we knew that is, of course, from an accountability standpoint, we have tracking and analytics set up. So we knew pretty much a few weeks in that something was wrong. And we were like, immediately making changes over those first 90 days to get something to go. And at the end of the day, nothing would give. And, we talked with our client, and we were pretty much upfront with them as well about this being in a different industry than we were used to working in, right? And that always comes with this set of problems. It's very nice because we work with a ton of home service companies. So usually if you're in home service, we already work with a type of client like you, either in St. Louis or outside of St. Louis. I would say about 50% of our clientele is in St. Louis. Again, that really came from networking and cold calling. The other 50% that came outside from St. Louis was cold reach out on LinkedIn, cold calling, and then also referrals, which has been great. I don't do a ton of cold calling now, but I still do cold calling just because really you need to. I mean, there's a hit list. I have a hit list of people I want to get a hold of, and me reaching out to those people every so often. Hopefully I can get in front of those people and it'll land into something that will be very fruitful for the podcast or for Vi or for whatever company, we're working on. So set proper expectations, understand your target market. I mean, this is an easy one coming from a marketing expert, but understand your target market. I mean, who are you going after realistically, and then set your price accordingly, right? Okay, great. You're the person that wants to charge the cheapest. Well, let's see where you're going to go in order to get the cheapest bids, right? Let's say you're going to be the most expensive. Well, obviously, you want to make sure that you're only getting in areas of people that can actually afford you. is there just a ton of companies just like you? How do you differentiate yourself? Instead of just being an HVAC contractor, maybe what you're known for is AC repair, depending on where you're at, right? So you're in, the southern part of the United States, and even here in St. Louis, it gets hot as hell too. You want to focus on that AC side and be known as the AC expert, right? There's different ways to understand your target market. So one thing I'll say is talk to friends, family, conduct surveys, and look up research online, right? What are people's pain points? Talk to business owners, talk to talk to homeowners. If you're starting a, plumbing company, talk to homeowners. Be like, what plumbing companies have you used? Has there been issues with them? What have those issues been? Have you had good experiences? What have those experiences been? Is there anything specifically that you can remember out of those good experiences that you would suggest I do? Is there anything you would suggest that I wouldn't do, right? Things like that. Talk to them. Analyze competitors. Look at what they have on their website. Facebook ad library, FYI, you can go in and look at anybody's ads that they're running, any business that is running ads, of course. So if you want to look at it from a social standpoint, you can go on Facebook ad library. If you want to see what they're running on Google ads, I don't do this, but if you want, just go HVAC company St. Louis or wherever you're at. If you're an HVAC company or whatever, look up, that, look at your competitors. And, I wouldn't say click on their, ads, but if you want to see where they're sending people, are they sending them to a landing page? What's that landing page talking about? Is their ad campaign set up, right? You can see all of that stuff. So understand your target market, who you're wanting to get in front of, what services are going to work best for you, what do people want to hear about, what's your marketing message, right? Things like that. Customer service excellence. I was just at this expo again the other day, and I was talking to a sewer line company. And I was like, how are you guys so successful? And they said 5 words. We pick up the phone.
Hey there, St. Louis podcast listeners. We've got some exciting news from our friends over at Farmers Insurance of St. Louis, led by the man, the myth, the legend, Mark Lee of Farmers Insurance.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking for a job or to own your own business under a brand that everyone and their cousin is familiar with, Mark Lee with Farmers Insurance of St. Louis is recruiting insurance agency owners here in St. Louis for their Farmers Insurance Mentorship Program.
And as many of you are aware, Garrett and I have owned quite a few successful and award-winning businesses over the years. And in a past life, one of those was a farmers insurance agency out of Chesterfield, Missouri.
Eric and I know firsthand how hard it is to start a business under a brand that no one has heard of and convince consumers and businesses to trust that you're an authority figure in your industry.
And as many of you know, we own an award-winning marketing firm, Vi Media, the one that Garrett was just discussing. And building that company's reputation literally took years. We're still building it to this day, and it's been 8 years in the making. However, with the Trusted Farmers Insurance Agency name on the building, we got started when we started our Farmers Insurance Agency. The trust was already built and has been for 96 years.
And if you can't do math, that means Farmers Insurance has been around since 1928. Luckily, you don't need to be a human calculator to get rich as an owner of your very own Farmers Insurance Agency.
Nope. All you have to do is reach out to the one and only Mark Lee, the leader of Farmers Insurance in the greater St. Louis metropolitan area.
That's right. So ensure he continues to sponsor our show and your favorite podcast, the St. Louis Podcast, by quitting your job today and calling Mark Lee. I wouldn't even wait for him to answer your call. Call your boss now, quit, and become your very own business owner.
Mm-hmm. Visit insurancecareerstl.com. That is insurancecareerstl.com. Should we spell it out?
Yes. It would
INSURANCE. Career, CAREER, STL.com, insurancecareerstl.com. Go there now. Back to the podcast.
And wait, insurancecareerstl.com.
Back to the podcast. And I was like, why is it so hard for home service companies to pick up the phone? Listen, to all you home service companies owners out there, I get you're busy. There are third-party answering services that you guys can get a hold of. If you want a good one, message me or message the podcast, and I can get you who answers the calls right now for West County Insulation. I would like to eventually, for the people of St. Louis, somehow bring this in-house as a service for home service companies and being able to talk intelligently, or at least somewhat intelligently, about the services that you offer and get people scheduled directly on your schedule, right? That's what we want. And that's what our current call company does for us. But of course, like everything else, there are proponents of outsourcing this stuff because technically it could be cheaper where they're based at, right? Or you don't have to pay someone hourly. You can just pay someone per phone call or whatever. But we want to really keep as much as we can in-house. We want to hire, Americans, right? Which they are Americans who we currently work with. But realistically, we'd like to have them in-house. We'd like to have someone in our office answering phone calls for Vi, for our contracting businesses, and for anyone else, because really, again, it's a differentiating factor. If you can reliably have someone answer the phone and get back to people that fill out forms, I mean, it's a game changer for home service companies. And same thing with any service company. We use a bunch of softwares. Getting a hold of software companies is a absolute nightmare. I want to buy your service, book a demo. Can't book a demo with them. Never hear back. Send emails, get on chat. It's a nightmare. Companies make it so hard just from a standpoint of you actually being able to get the appointment and go out there and sell that business. So customer service excellence, answer the phone, be prepared, know what you're doing, talk well. There's a lot of home service companies that, I will say just aren't, professional when it comes to things. Look professional, be professional. You're selling a service more likely than not if you're a home service company that is going to be thousands of dollars. Look like, you're selling a service for thousands of dollars, right? Look professional. Train your staff, right? It's not just you as the business owner. You need to make sure that your staff is professional as well, that they know what they're talking about, that they are providing a good customer service. And realistically, what I would say is have a customer service sheet of what's expected from everyone in your company. If they're a salesperson, if they're, a technician, if they're, a project manager, whatever their job title is, they should have something that they follow that is like, hey, this is part of our overall goal of establishing the best customer service for our clients. And in Vi, we try and have everything from a standpoint of setup, what is to be expected. We, first we have a meeting. We have a discovery meeting with a client. We don't want to sell them something immediately because we don't know about their business. Let's learn about their business. Let's establish a marketing plan, meet back with them, go over the marketing plan. Does this make sense? Do we need to make changes? And then go ahead and get them onboarded if it makes sense for them and it makes sense for us, right? After that, we have a blueprint meeting with our client. We go over an onboarding. We get them onboarded. We take a deep dive into their business, right? After that, we have a month usually of setting up analytics, building out the ad account if it's ads, setting up the SEO plan or whatever have you. We usually have a 30-day startup window where we're building out and facilitating the plan. Get back with our client at the end of the month. I already have that meeting set. And then they're ongoing, have a meeting set every single month with the same agenda that we're going over. How well did we perform last month? Or if we've been working with a client long enough, how well have we performed over the last 3 months or 6 months? Or let's look at last year this month compared to this year of this month, right? Looking over those analytics, looking over their CRM, looking what's the cost per lead, where are we closing business, what's working well, what's not working well. If we're not having those discussions with our clients and the client is not set up well to be able to tell us that data, usually it's not going to work out well. So we want to make sure that all of that stuff is set up beforehand. And then, of course, we're being held accountable. We're measuring everything. We're doing our part. We're doing our work. We're meeting with our clients and we're showing what should be at the end of the day with ads, with SEO, the improvements that were made and where we're sitting at, right? Same thing with social media. Some other things, get reviews. That comes at the end of having great customer service. You can have a customer loyalty program with home service companies, depending on what you are. It makes sense because they're going to come back and use you, especially if you're, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, things like that, right? Obviously, for insulation, it's a little bit more tough because it's not like, you need insulation every 5 years or every year. Leveraging local SEO. I'm really not going to talk too much about this because, of course, if you want to know more about it, go to the Vi Media channel. right? We have specific videos that go in depth on leveraging local SEO. But what I will say is set up a Google business listing, set up an actual business address for that Google business listing, make sure your category is set up properly, make sure your services are set up properly, make sure your website is set up properly. Make sure you have service pages for all the services that you do. Start to build out location pages for the different townships. Have an about page, super important. Make sure that you actually are able to measure Google Analytics, Google Search Console. Make sure this stuff is set up. There's business directories. I talked about it actually just today on Marketing Monday. Different platforms and free services and free plugins and things like that that you guys can use to really build out an SEO plan. Build a strong brand identity, right? That's really where, not only networking, shaking hands, posting on social media, right? But what is your brand identity? What do you guys do? At Vi, we preach ROI. Vi is ROI. That's literally what we preach. That's what we try to, have our brand identity around. And of course that we can build home service companies, right? We've done it for West County Insulation. We did it with our own services. We grew them to over $1 million in revenue directly using the services we provide for our clients, web, SEO, ads. And building the identity around that, right? Having the Vi Media channel, establishing ourselves as digital marketing experts. That is what we want to be known as. How do you digital market it? How do you market a company digitally online? We want to be known as those people that you can look at and ask, regardless if you want to be our client or not, hey, I have a question about this. You can reach out to me, Vi, whatever. And, we have that authority to give you that feedback back. And if we don't know, we don't know. And we'll tell you that, or we'll be like, we don't know, but we can, look into it. Just like anything, we don't know everything. Like I was saying at the beginning of this video, we had a situation where, it didn't go as planned and the marketing campaign just strictly did not work. We're making changes now to go in a completely different avenue for that company. And we're doing a lot to make that relationship work. And the reason we're still able to work with them again is because we came up front. We were up front and we were like, listen, this isn't working. We need to do something else. Most marketing companies, and there are a lot here locally and a ton of large ones that probably some of you have worked with, where they won't let you out of a contract even if it's not working. They don't care. You signed a contract, you signed your dotted, you sign on the dotted line and you're stuck. It doesn't matter if that marketing campaign is working for your business or not. So build a strong brand identity. What's your story, right? What's your mission? What's your value? Who are you trying to help? Why are you trying to help them? We built Vi because we liked helping business owners. We liked marketing, and we really wanted to learn about marketing in order to start other businesses. And of course, which we've successfully done. Financial management, boring, right? Create a budget, monitor cash flow, set up QuickBooks or something. Make sure you're able to, also, I would say, depending on the type of company you are, if you're a home service company, you should probably go ahead and make sure that you're able to have some sort of project management software where you're measuring, you're able to see the quote values, you're sending out quotes, you're getting stuff signed, your contracts are in there, right? You're measuring your jobs, you're closing out the jobs when the job is done. You're able, if you have subcontractors or employees, to get them in there to send that kind of stuff out for you, right? Financial management, separate personal and business, right? That's pretty easy. So, I'm not going to talk a lot about financial management. There are people way more adept and skilled in that than myself. But from a basics, you should have something set up to measure, to look at your books, if that's QuickBooks or something else, and project management. I mean, you need something to be able to, if you're a home service company, or if you're a marketing agency, we use Pipedrive, there's HubSpot, there's all these CRMs, there's all these project management softwares. Make sure you're using one. Otherwise, stuff will fall through the cracks. You'll get a bad review and you'll be like, what the hell happened? I don't even remember this person. Well, if they were in your system, you would have remembered. Adapting to change, right? There are a ton of home service companies, that we've talked to in the past, and we've worked with a couple in the past that just were not adapting to change. We've talked about one of the roofing companies that we worked with in the past, not here locally, that wouldn't answer the phone if the area code was outside their area. Now, where we were targeting, there were two area codes for that area. And then not only that, obviously you have people that move in from out of town. All right. So this person was a nightmare. They had pen and paper for all of their jobs. They had no project management. We would come in and, show him our CRM and be like, here are all of these leads that came in from the last month. He'd be like, I don't know where any of these leads are. Wouldn't answer the phone, things like that. So it was just a nightmare client. You want to adapt to change. You want to make sure that, you have stuff set up properly and that you're paying attention to the industry. You're paying attention to what your competitors are doing, right? You don't hate your competitors. Sometimes you want to work with your competitors because they do things well that maybe you don't do and vice versa. And you can even establish authority and a credibility through that way by having that type of relationship with people in your industry, which we do as well. But in marketing, of course, it's tough, right? There's a lot of us out there that just aren't for the end consumer. They're not for the end business owner. They're out for themselves. And that's very apparent. So be proactive rather than reactive. Anticipate changes in your industry, right? Also with that, one thing to adapt to change is know what's going on in your industry. Continuous learning and education is important. If it's listening to other people that are highly credible in your industry, if it's looking at, industry specific news that's coming out, if it's looking at trends, if it's looking at pricing, materials, what's happening specifically in your area with, the climate, for example, has it just absolutely stormed, its ass off this year. So, that it makes sense to, maybe look at roofing or things like that, or landscaping or people that have had issues with irrigation and ditches and things like that. How can you adapt to changes and make sense? Then, of course, continuous learning. Are there new, programs or softwares being developed that are going to allow you to make more money right at the end of the day? So look at mastermind groups. There's a lot of them, but really getting with people that are also successful in your industry, and really, of course, really what you want to do is get with people that are more successful than you in your industry and learn what they're doing. Is there anything they're focusing on? Is there anything there that you can learn from them, right? What else do we got on here? Man, with coping with stress. I mean, what are you gonna say? Being a business owner is stressful. It sucks, but it's also very fruitful. There's a lot of people that aren't built out for it, and I don't think I was necessarily built out for it at first. Like I said at the beginning of this video, it took me a long time to come over my fear of giving up my 8 to 5 or 9 to 5. Having a good salary. I didn't have to write the checks. I just got to deposit my check, every 2 weeks or twice a month or whatever it was. And, I could go to bed happy. I didn't have to worry about where the leads were coming from, because we had leads coming in that were established through, the owner's network. So I didn't have to worry about a lot of the stuff, that a normal business owner would. Obviously with sales, it's still a lot more stressful of a position than a normal 9 to 5 job, but it's nothing like literally live or die by having payroll every single month, keeping the lights on, making sure, the biggest thing is just making sure that your employees can get paid, making sure not only that your employees can get paid, that you're having enough money to give them raises when it makes sense. And obviously with inflation, business owners are getting killed because we have to continue to pay our employees more because they're getting killed because all of their goods and things are up. So it's not like we can keep them where they're at. And therefore, what do we have to do? We have to raise our prices, with our clients to make up for that, because where else are we going to make up for it? We can only do so much work for every single client. So if we have to pay our employees more, which of course we want to always continue to pay our employees well, then we have to, increase pricing. And that's a tough pill to swallow, right? We're working with a lot of small and medium-sized businesses. Some of these companies don't have a lot of money to spend on marketing, right? So us going to them and be like, hey, we're charging X, Y, and Z for these services. And sometimes, people can't afford it, or they're like, it's expensive. I'm like, hey, I get it. We're not the most affordable marketing company on the planet, but we do a damn good job. And, it pays off for it usually. Like I said, 98% of the time before. But, we have to, in order to have good talent, right? We have to charge for that. And of course, in order to have good talent, we have to pay for that, right? That's why we have great talent on our team. And, there are nights, multiple nights. I wouldn't even say weekly, but multiple nights a month, maybe weekly. Who are we kidding? Where, my brain's racing at night. And I just realized, actually, I think about a couple weeks ago, well, actually last week, went to Cancun, that I'd always say I don't have anxiety, which is kind of a dumb thing to say in general because that doesn't make sense because, of course, you have anxiety. But I was like, I never really, I'm not an anxiety guy. But traveling gives me anxiety for some reason. I don't know why. I traveled dozens of times, and every single time I always get anxiety. Before I leave, hard to sleep. And I was like, literally, I'd rather stand on a stage in front of hundreds of people, talk about what I do, or get on here and, and talk about the podcast and talk about, talk to a business owner or talk to whoever, a badass, about what they do, and literally get on a flight, which is insane. And, it slowly made me realize that I do definitely have anxiety when it comes to owning a business and the things that go along with it. But I'm a lot better at dealing with that anxiety than traveling, which is insane to say. And potentially, I'm going to go talk to my doctor, maybe get a little anti-anxiety medication, to help with those days. But, that's slowly been me growing up because I've always been the guy that's been like, I don't want, I took ADD medicine my whole life, up until pretty much halfway through college where I didn't want to take it anymore. And that was just really based off research, right? I did a lot of research going back to the research I do on clothing, the research I do on, finding shoes and clothing brands and things like that. People are always like, where do you buy your clothes? Just and really just doing a lot of research. And in college, I researched ADD medicine, and I realized that it's something that I was born with, and it's something that I'm going to have to deal with. I don't think taking medicine every day of my life is something that I should or need to do. And it sucked at first. It was terrible. Figuring out how to adjust and really kind of maintain. And it took me multiple years to really figure that out. When I stopped, maybe I stopped sophomore year, that semester sucked. Just because it was hard to get out of bed, used to taking stimulants and things like that. It's like all of a sudden something was wiped. But what I noticed is that when I was on ADD medicine, I was very good at knocking out a to-do list. But when it come to being personable, say, you're almost like a ghost. You're like a machine. And that didn't work not only for, at the end going through college, but of course getting into, sales and doing that stuff. You can't just be you can't be a robot. You have to be a person. And so, stopping medication. So I've always been the person that I'm like, I don't want to take medication for anything if I can help it. But yeah, anyways, off my soapbox. So there's a few things really that work well for me, to, make sure that if you're getting stressful, what can you do? Number one, having partners is super useful. Talking to my business partners, right, about what's going on, but also having, outside people to talk to about as well. Maybe other business owners, things like that. Working out. I try to work out, 5 days a week if I can, 4 to 5 days a week. That is my goal. It helps a ton with stress management. I think it's the only time of the day that I'm potentially not thinking about anything else besides, the movement that I'm making with the weight. And I used to, I should say, do breath work. There's different things to do, meditation, if you will, just trying to get out of your own head. Obviously cold showers work well for people with ADD. There's actually studies that show that. So that's something I do every single day, is take a cold shower. It really helps get right into it. I'm a routine guy as well, though. With ADD and with ADHD, you kind of need a routine. Otherwise you start. I've never been the guy that's like misplaced things, but I do have routines in the morning, right? And that's probably one big thing that actually, now that I think about it, that, screws with my anxiety, is now my routine is whack. It's done. I can no longer have my routine, obviously, when I'm on vacation or out of town working, for that matter, as well. So, be mindful. If you're feeling stressed, if you're vulnerable, dude, so are other business owners. Reach out to other business owners. I'm telling you, we're we all struggle on a daily basis with one thing or another. With, myself, why I bought the suit right to begin with was, what's the word? Imposter syndrome. Yes, thank you. Imposter syndrome. You're talking about marketing when you first start, you're trying to sell business owners, you have imposter syndrome. You're like, am I actually able to do what I'm saying? And at first, for the first couple of years, I say with any business, you have imposter syndrome. And that's one big thing to get over. And I have imposter syndrome every single day I get on this podcast because I'm like, why am I sitting here talking to you guys? Who the hell am I? Why does anyone want to listen to me? And, I have to get over that every single week because it is definitely a thing that I have issues with. Being in marketing now for 7 years, it's a lot easier to say I'm an expert when it comes to those things. I'm in no means an expert of podcasting, in content creation and entertainment. I just do this for fun. And hopefully to make a little bit of money on the side, which, eventually we'll get there, right? Which, by the way, if you want to be a sponsor of the podcast, reach out to us. We could go through numbers. We could go through pricing, how it makes sense for your business or does it make sense for your business. With the St. Louis brand, we have some upcoming news here in the next couple of weeks, which I'm excited about. As always, that's all the time we have for today. I hope you guys learned something. Please like, review, subscribe, share with a friend. I went into some detail on some stuff here today. So if you want another episode about me talking about business, I know I went all over the place. Specifically, please comment. Let me know. Send me a DM. As always, show us some love. We'll be back next week. Thank you all. Goodbye.
Hey there, St. Louis podcast listeners. We've got some exciting news from our friends over at Farmers Insurance of St. Louis, led by the man, the myth, the legend, Mark Lee of Farmers Insurance.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking for a job or to own your own business under a brand that everyone and their cousin is familiar with, Mark Lee with Farmers Insurance of St. Louis is recruiting insurance agency owners here in St. Louis for their Farmers Insurance Mentorship Program.
And as many of you are aware, Garrett and I have owned quite a few successful and award-winning businesses over the years. And in a past life, one of those was a farmers insurance agency out of Chesterfield, Missouri.
Eric and I know firsthand how hard it is to start a business under a brand that no one has heard of and convince consumers and businesses to trust that you're an authority figure in your industry.
And as many of you know, we own an award-winning marketing firm, Vi Media, the one that Garrett was just discussing. And building that company's reputation literally took years. We're still building it to this day, and it's been 8 years in the making. However, with the Trusted Farmers Insurance Agency name on the building, we got started when we started our Farmers Insurance Agency. The trust was already built and has been for 96 years.
And if you can't do math, that means Farmers Insurance has been around since 1928. Luckily, you don't need to be a human calculator to get rich as an owner of your very own Farmers Insurance Agency.
Nope. All you have to do is reach out to the one and only Mark Lee, the leader of Farmers Insurance in the greater St. Louis metropolitan area.
That's right. So ensure he continues to sponsor our show and your favorite podcast, the St. Louis podcast, by quitting your job today and calling Mark Lee. I wouldn't even wait for him to answer your call. Call your boss now, quit, and become your very own business owner.
Mm-hmm. Visit insurancecareerstl.com. That is insurancecareerstl.com. Should we spell it out?
Yes. It would
INSURANCE, career, CAREER, STL.com, insurancecareerstl.com. Go there now. Back to the podcast.
And wait, insurancecareerstl.com.